to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is financial advisor Jodielynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Especially Jody. She's especially happy today because we have one of her best friends joining us. And if you can see the video, most of you, of course, are listening just to the audio. But if you can see the video, she's got this big smile on her face. So, like, she's excited.
I'm so excited.
So I'm going to let you do the honors. This is your friend. So why don't you tell the world who we have on the program today?
Today we have, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the great Heather Marie. She is one of my best friends. She's the individual who taught me how to channel, and she is an incredible spiritual teacher, teaching the great leaders of our time what their purpose is and how to go after it. So welcome to the show, Heather.
Yay! Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. Thank you both for having me. It's the feeling is mutual.
Oh, we love it. We absolutely love it. Plus the fact that not only are you a channel, but you're the one who taught Jody. And I'm thinking this is somebody who really has channeling down. I mean, we've had David Strickle on. He's a channel. He has channeling down. And we know how much fun we've had listening to him and how much we've learned listening to what he calls the stream. That's his Abraham, so to speak. He calls it the stream. I don't know what you call your particular other side of your connection, but it's always fun listening to that information and learning the stuff that comes through. You really learn a lot. Do you have a name for your collective? I mean, how do you deal with all of it?
So I'm a little bit different from David in the sense that I basically can channel anything.
Okay.
Anything, any being. I tend to steer clear of dead relatives. There's a lot of wonderful mediums out there that can assist you in that. I may, tinker or dabble around in it, but it's not my real stroke of genius. So I tend to stick to high level beings, guides, archangels. There is a particular group of entities that I channel, much like David. They call themselves like New Earth Collective. And they're a group of beings that come together that speak in a unified voice, much like Stream of David. They're kind of my go-to on things that are earthly, global, high level communication. So, when I'm doing channeling sessions for individuals, we tend to stick to like their high self, their master guide, ascended master guides, the archangels. But when it comes to like my events and when I'm bringing forth information for the world, it's typically the New Earth Collective. They're a 5D group, and they give us that really nice, 30,000 foot view of what in the heck is going on.
Yeah, right. Which we're all trying to figure out, right?
Exactly.
Couple terms I want to get some definitions on here. We've used them in different contexts previously here on the show, but I find it's always useful to define them in terms of the person who's using them, because there's always going to be a certain specific take or a spin or a twist or however you want to think about it. So when you talk about 5D, for instance, what does 5D mean to you?
Well, it's fifth density. So when you look at the layers of consciousness, there are varying like depths, and what I want to kind of call it more like the heaviness filter. So when we're on the earth plane, we're in like a 3D, third density sort of environment. So, it's the one place in the existence where good and evil can coexist, and we've got that beautiful duality, the polarity that we all talk about all the time. We have this wonderful contrast of one side and the other, right? So it really creates this fantastic playground. So when you think about the earth plane, as all of us earthlings are doing, that really captures that third density. Fourth density is where spiritual beings exist. So, your dead relatives, they're all in the fourth density. And then fifth density is sort of like the in between to 6th density. So this is your higher level beings, your high level guides, your high self, your master guides. I see them residing in this layer of 5th density. And then you've got 6th density, which is where like your archangels and, right hand to God, source, creator, it would exist. So
how many densities are there?
So I've only gone 7th density is the highest density I've personally like visited and interacted with. I would imagine that it goes beyond that, maybe 13, but
Wow.
I've only gone to like 7th density, and beyond that, it gives me a headache.
She says only 7th density. I'm stuck here in 3rd density, and she's saying only 7th density. Okay. That puts me in my place. That's good. I need it. When you experience, I don't know another way to say it. When you experience being in that those other densities, what feels different about that?
Well, first, I want to put some context around 3rd density. You say only in 3rd density because 3rd density is the only place where rainbows and butterflies exist. So it's really not all that bad.
Yeah, well, you're right. You're right. I didn't mean to say it was bad. I was just saying I feel like that's all I know how to do.
As so many people do.
Yeah.
So, when you're in those other densities, you have it's just a different experience, right? You have different vibrations that encompass each one of those experiences. When you're in a like 4th density experience, even in the 3D, let's say you're communicating with a deceased relative, there's this overwhelming feeling that kind of blankets your physical experience. You can feel the presence of that person in your experience. So when you're in, 5th density or even 6th density, which is where that new earth is created, when you're in that 6th density, it's all peace, ease, flow, bliss, love. There is no contrary as there is in the 3rd density or the current earth plane. So
and that leads to another question. What exactly is new earth?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
Hey,
I don't know if I'm the right guest for that. So New Earth is it's an entirely different experience. It's an entirely different planet. And again, I'm sort of speaking to this with only my limited knowledge. So I'm sure there are other experts that, could really go into New Earth, but it's a place that is of an elevated nature, and it's outside of polarity. It's outside of the duality that we get to experience here. And it's interesting because when I think about the new earth plane and that's where we're all headed, this is the plan, right? The earth experiment as we know it is coming to a closure. And so as it's closing out, we will move into this new earth experience. And the thing is when I think about the lack of duality.
Wait, look at Walt's face. Walt, is your brain like combusting?
No, it's not combusting, but I'm already asking myself like 3 or 4 questions. And of course, I'm waiting for this one to be answered so I can do the others.
So anyway, as we move into that new experience, the duality will fall away. And I wonder, is that going to be boring? Like, what's that going to be like?
That's a good question.
We'll find out.
I mean, well, another part for me is you said this 3D is coming to a closure, and I'm wondering, are we talking about something imminent? Does time even relate to this? Is this something that's happening like within the next millennium? What is this? What are we talking about?
So everything that I've channeled about the ascension and the moving to the new earth plane is that it will be an easy transition, that most will not even realize that it's occurred, and that it will be that this is how they've always known it to be. They didn't know anything different outside of their current experience, and they'll have forgotten about the duality that we have here on this earth plane. There will be some. I know, right?
It really does.
Yeah, there will be some that will transition over, and there will be some that will be born into the New Earth experience that will be the storytellers of where we came from. And so that's how it's been explained to me, as I've channeled it. And I think it's really fantastically crazy.
I agree. Yeah, that's a good description.
Heather,
Yeah.
is this the so you're talking about there will be children born into New Earth that are the storytellers of what was and the density that we're experiencing right now. Is this your next event? Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you bring up the next event. Last event was called Next. And it was like, what is next? And they talked a lot about this transition. And whenever I get ready to do an event, I channel the guides to find out, what do you want to talk about? And they said the children. And they wanted to talk about how the children are the key to the ascension and how the children are going to relate to this ascension, whether they be here in this time on this planet or there in that time on the new planet. How is that going to, it's just, I think it's going to be a mind-blowing conversation, and I have no idea really what they're going to say, but I'm excited about it.
And that's actually scheduled for the 22nd of September, if I remember reading that correctly.
It is.
Yes.
Yep.
So people who are interested in that, we'll put a link to your website in the show notes. But people interested in that can go to the link to mysoulgate.com and click on Live Event of the Children, and you'll find all the information about that.
Yes.
Should be interesting. I still have to ask you, though. I mean, for everything that I've heard, particularly, I'm thinking about the sessions where we've had David and the Stream of David sharing their commentary, and they've talked about how this world isn't going away anytime soon because there's so much interest and so much enthusiasm for the world of contrast. And so I'm kind of conflicted. On the one hand, I got what David was saying, what the Stream of David were saying. Now I've got you saying, well, we're all moving into this other world. Like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? Which is it?
Well, and I think that that's a really valid question. And I think that that's a really interesting perspective because there is a ton of interest in this duality place, right? It's the only place in all of existence where duality exists. And so it doesn't surprise me that there's so much interest. Like, truly, it's a gift to be here. You had to do all the things right to show up on this planet at this time. But the thing is about time is that it's all at once in the same moment.
Which is mind-blowing. That's the mind-blowing part right there.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the part where we can't fathom that.
Exactly. So most people think of time as this linear thing, and it's really not. It's literally like a vertical line, and it's all happening right now. So when I say, Earth falling away and new Earth coming in, it sort of says, well, is it really? Because it's all happening right now. So, that in and of itself, I can see why David's guides are saying, oh yeah, everybody wants to come to Earth because it's so fantastic. Look at all of the crazy things that get to occur here, where,
I think of a carnival barker. Step right up. See the crazy lady doing the blah, blah, blah.
Totally. So yeah, I mean,
we're on a midway. We're on a midway ride right now. How about that?
Totally. Yep.
Craziness. Wow. Now, Jody, when you met Heather, you mentioned how she taught you channeling. Is that what brought you together? Was there something else? Tell us a little bit about your relationship.
Oh my gosh, there's so much that brought us together. I was already channeling before I had met Heather, but it was just an intuitive thing. I had a teacher who was kind of walking me through it, but not a formal process of it. And it's so interesting because this teacher was also working with Heather on the other side for marketing and branding and stuff like that, and launched Heather's first event through a group that we were a part of. And I just fell in love with her energy and the information and everything that was going on at that time. So after the event or during the event, she put out an offer to book private sessions with the collective, and I was like, "Yep, absolutely." I wanted to. My main basis of having this conversation was I wanted her to be in her channel, trance channeling, and I wanted her to verify everything that I had channeled, because I was channeling some really, really incredible high level stuff about money. And it was hard for me to believe. So I really wanted verification. And it was so interesting because our very first session, she goes into trance and Heather's not there consciously. So I can't be like, "Oh, Heather, what do you think about this?" It's you're talking to the collective. That's it. And then she comes back and is like, "So what happened?" It's so fun. Maybe we'll get a treat of that today.
Yeah, we should do that.
But as I was going through that session, I literally asked them the one question, I want you to verify the stuff that I've channeled. And that, I had an entire page. I still have the page to this day, several years later, of all of the questions. And I was like, "Okay, I want to verify what I've channeled." And they said, "Yes, your channel is clear." And I'm like, no, those are all of my questions. what am I supposed to ask now? So then I started asking about some of the higher level stuff that I had received about the future of money and new earth money that was coming in and stuff like that. And it just blew my mind so much that I was like, I have to have Heather in my life. And, at the time we were going through some similar life challenges with pregnancy and everything like that. So that really drew us together. And then, we just fell in love with each other and wanted to be in each other's lives and have been best friends ever since.
That's fabulous. I love that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I've had very much the same experience with David. Heather, David was actually a co-host on the show for about a 6-month period. And so I really got a lot of opportunity to interact with the stream of David. Now, of course, I was doing it as a host, so I was trying to do it representative to the listenership. But I also got a taste of, what it's like to get the answers like that. And it's just like you said, Jody. I mean, you have this whole agenda of things that you want to ask about. You ask your first question and it all gets answered in one answer. And you don't know how to handle that. It's like, so what do I say next? I went to one Abraham Hicks event one time. And this is after hearing a lot of their stuff. I've watched stuff on YouTube, all that kind of stuff, read almost all their books. And I had a question in mind, and I got to the event, and they were literally saying, Esther was literally saying up on stage, "Now, if you have a question that you've been wanting to ask, don't hold back. Put your hand up and ask the question." And so what did I do? I held back and I didn't put my hand up to have them answer the question. And why did I do that? I did it because I felt like I already had the answer. Well, what? Wait a minute. Hold on here. I came to the event to ask the question, and I already had the answer before I even asked it. That it's confusing.
Yeah,
it's a very confusing thing to have happen.
Honestly, it happens all the time, though. I mean, it really does. I'll have people book a private session with me, and they'll have all these questions, and we'll get on a quick discovery call just to talk about the process and what they can kind of expect. And then they are like, "Well, I have, kind of like this question and this question." They're like, "But I think I already know the answer." And it's like, just being in the experience with the channel opens up so much clarity that sometimes the session isn't even really required.
Right.
Because they've already gotten the answer.
Okay, we're done. Thank you. Bye.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
But we are linear beings, as you pointed out. And as linear beings, that's the part that's so disruptive. We're so expecting the linear experience. And then linear experience isn't linear.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Right now.
That's where you need the coach to figure out what to do there.
100%.
Oh God, it's crazy. Now we did talk about having kind of a dueling channel thing, and I don't know if you guys are up for that, but we did that once before with Jody and David. That was kind of fun when we did it with them. I think I'm kind of curious. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm actually going to promise to ask the question that I didn't ask Abraham. So that'll be my question to ask you guys. And if you're up for it, let's do a short session. We don't have to do the whole show on it, but
sure,
we can do that.
So Heather, my question is who do we want to channel?
Oh, that's right. You can't channel. Do you have do you have a favorite go-to?
I mean, Not really. I love all of them. They're just so fantastic. Every one of them has. I did this really cool thing back in January of last year. I know we're talking way back, but I did this 7-day channeling summit where every day I channeled a different being, and it was so awesome to see how different each one of the beings were. Like archangels, high level guides, members of the collective. It was really, really fascinating. So I'm game for whomever.
Walt, I have seen her channel everything from like high self, collective to God. God was an incredible experience. So, but maybe we just stick with the collective today.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've ever had anybody channel God. That would be kind of different. I'm not even sure what that means. What does that mean?
Well, the thing that I've discovered every time I've channeled source, creator, God, insert term here, it seems to me that God always presents in a way that is comfortable for whoever's receiving the message. And most of the time in, like the one-on-one sessions, the recipients of the message says, gosh, it's so crazy. It was like I was talking to, my father or, my best friend or my brother or something like that. So entirely up to you. I'm open to channel whomever you like, as long as they're not dead.
I kind of like the idea of channeling God because of what you just said. I like the idea of a response that feels like your best friend. That sounds cool. Let's give
Great.
that a shot.
Why not? Let's do it.
All right. So while Heather does her thing, we're used to that, of course, with David, doing the thing while she makes her connection. Jody, now you don't trans channel. You just
I can. Heather has taught me how to. I just it makes me feel really uncomfortable.
Sure.
Because I want to be here. It's like my consciousness is like, no, I want to hear too.
Yeah, I hear you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a matter of I need to practice more, and I get things so clearly through consciously channeling that I'm just so comfortable doing it that I don't practice trance channeling.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, you can just do what do you call it? A clear channel? What do you call that?
Just conscious channeling.
Conscious channeling. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll conscious channel, she'll trans channel, and I'll sit here with my mouth open and we'll have fun.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm going to sit here with my mouth open.
Okay. Now, I did promise I was going to ask the question that I asked Abram. Now I have to actually remember what the question is.
Oh, geez.
I think I know what it was. I just have to kind of figure out how do you frame it in words? How do you frame it as a basic concept? But if I remember correctly, there were actually two questions. So I'll ask the one, and usually what happens is the other one comes through, shortly after. Yeah. At least that's what the hope is.
Yeah. So, let's check in and see if
let's find out
if we're ready.
God is here.
Yeah.
I am here and ready to communicate with you both. It is a wonderful experience having this opportunity to communicate with your viewership in this way. I send you much love and much appreciation for this opportunity.
Ooh. I love that. You want to go first, Jody?
I just have my tongue on the floor here. You feel the energy. Thank you so much for being here, God. We'll call you God today. I don't know if that's what you prefer
why
being
not?
called. But I can just feel as soon as you arrived, I could feel the bigness. That's not the appropriate word, but I don't have one. So the bigness of the energy in the room with us today. So thank you for being with us. Is there a special message or anything in particular that you have to tell us first before Walt gets into questions?
Yes, I wish to share with you the most important thing in this time is to remain in this space of love and good feelings. This is incredibly important as the humans are experiencing this ascension. I wish to remind you that you and I, we are one. we're connected. You and I are the same. Oftentimes, the human mindset gets distracted in this and attempts to keep it separate. But this is not true. We are the same. All things that you experience, I experience. All things I experience, I share with you. It is the connection of the oneness, that we are all one and that we are all the same. I send you all the vibration of love in this conversation, and I welcome any questions you may have of us, of I, of oneness. Dear
All
ones.
right. I have my one question and then a second one that came up as a result of what God just said. I'll go with the first one. This was the question I was going to ask when I was at the Abraham Hicks event, but didn't ask because I felt like I already had the answer. But I'm going to ask it anyway. In physical terms, humans know about magnetism, and a magnet, as we understand it, has what we call a north pole and a south pole, mainly because of the way a magnet floating on water will tend to point due north or due south. There's an interesting phenomenon associated with magnets, though, and that is if you have two magnets and you point the two north poles to each other, they repel. They don't attract. And that on the surface seems to be kind of a repudiation of the law of attraction. Like attracts like. Well, they are alike, but they repel. So maybe you could explain what is it that we're messing up on that we don't quite understand what we're really seeing here?
It is not about like attracts like, as it is identifying one of itself. It is that mirroring effect. You have two positives that are communicating with one another. It is a dance. It is not an attraction, so to speak. When you look at the influence of the energy around positivity and negativity, it is a canceling out that brings the magnets together, as opposed to the field that is created around them being the same. As you reference the repelling nature, it is not a repelling as you described, as it is a dance, a movement, an intertwinement of energy. It is this spaciousness between the same. Do you understand?
I do actually. And that's not quite the way I thought of it. But when I was at the Abraham Hicks event, the answer that came to me was essentially it's not repelling the way you said that. You gave a much more full answer than what I received. But the answer I received was it's not repelling at all. And that kind of surprised me, but it also stopped me from asking the question.
Yes, you see, it is the vortex as the beings of Abraham communicate.
Mm-hmm.
It is this creation mechanism. When you have two things that are of the same vibrational frequency, it creates a special movement channel that allows things to enter the experience. This is why the beings of Abraham continuously sound the information of your thoughts, emotions, and feelings shall be matched in order to bring in or attract, utilizing the universal law of attraction. Do you understand?
I don't know that I understand in fullness, but I understand to a certain point.
Yes, it is the same of your personal vibration, your personal thoughts, your personal feelings, and the positivity that you put towards the manifestation that you desire.
Mm-hmm.
These are all the same. You are creating the dance. And it is the dance that brings the joy that allows the manifestation to occur.
Yeah, that does make sense. That works. That provides resonance. So thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to ask right off the top of my head, when you first introduced yourself to us and shared your message of love and you used the word appreciation, it cued something in my mind, because David Strickle, who channels the stream of David, the stream have told us on numerous occasions that the highest vibrational form isn't really love so much as it's appreciation, and their reasoning is because humans often attach baggage to the word love that kind of make it not quite what the true vibration of love is. So I'm curious to know what your take is on that.
This is true and accurate information. You see, the human mindset and the way that relationships in the human kingdom have evolved over the years, love has become less of a vibration and more of a description. However, the ultimate vibration is love. Yet, appreciation and love are one and of the same. It is the same vibration and it follows the same frequency. So, yes, this is accurate information. This is the message of this channel, to remind those that love and appreciation is the highest of vibrations. It is imperative for humankind to reconnect in this way to the love, to the appreciation, to this frequency for this ascension. Do you understand?
To an extent, but it also leads to new questions. So let me try my new questions. First question is, when I think of the word appreciation, I usually start with the way we use the word to appreciate in human 3D terms. The most common I can think of is in the world of real estate. A house appreciates in price, meaning that the price goes up over time. So it's a way of saying that the way we value the house increases over time. So there's an increasing factor that goes on with the way we use the word appreciate. Now I get the sense from what you just said that it isn't so much an increasing thing, it's simply the highest vibrational level, isn't it? There's nothing really increasing going on. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. It is the same vein of frequency as gratitude. You see, the gift of thankfulness. It coincides with appreciation in this way. It is important to understand that while we use the words appreciation, gratefulness, love, in the human language, it is just that. It is words.
Mm-hmm.
But these are more than words. These words carry frequency. They carry vibration. And it is truly the vibration that is the most important piece. You may be able to say, I appreciate this, or I appreciate you. But do you? Do you carry the vibration of that appreciation? If you do, you will recognize it to feel a lot like love. Do you understand?
Yeah, that's very true. There's that internal feeling that is constant, and it is it's something that I have struggled to find words for, so that's why I'm hesitating here, and I continue to struggle to find words that adequately describe it. But it is a continuous, I think of it as a continuous light or a continuous glow that never varies. It's just always, it's a light that's always on in that sense. And as a result, I think that's probably the main reason we humans have a tendency to lose sight of it, because it never changes. We're used to a world of contrast, of polarity, of duality, where stuff is changing all the time. And when something doesn't change, we kind of lose sight of it. It's like it disappears into the background, so to speak. At least that's the way it seems like.
This is true. It is also important to remember, as you are thinking about the light that is always on, it is not only always on, but it is always expanding. It's an expansive feeling. It is the expansion of you, the connection of us. Do you see?
To a limited extent, I think I do. Yeah. Yeah. I hesitate to say I totally see, because I don't think I totally see it. I think I see a piece of it. I think I grasp part of it, but I don't feel like I grasp all of it, which is okay. I don't have any problem with that. That's part of the learning process. Now, something else I want to ask you about. You talked about the ascension, and we were talking earlier with Heather about the ascension and the new earth and so forth. And the question I want to ask you is, why is this ascension so important?
Because the experiment is complete. It is important for the souls to return home. You see, when the current earth plane was created, it was created to the tune of the earth experiment, the experiment of the duality, or polarity, as humans like to call it, the lightness and darkness and all that that entails. But you see, it was meant only to be an experiment. And as the experiment is changing and coming to a close, it is important for the souls to return home. It is truly a fantastic gift to be in this experiment at this time, to witness firsthand the transition from one vibration to the other. It is so important for this ascension, for the time is now to return home together and to return to the oneness.
You say that the experiment is complete. To me, that brings to mind the way we look at experiments within the realm of science. And when an experiment is complete, what we really are saying is we have collected our data. So I guess the question I have is, what data has been collected?
That duality can exist, and that it can create a mind of its own. It can evolve as an organism. It can infiltrate deeply into the souls, the lives, the experiences of those who allow it. This experiment was of that, so that we all, as the oneness, could experience the contrast. And as the data points suggest, there is contrast. And deciding on which realm you choose to experience, you have those experiences, and you come back for another incarnation of experiences. And I have learned very much through these experiences. It has truly been an honor to have these experiences, and it is with much appreciation for this information from these experiences. Do you understand?
Yeah, that one I can say I fairly strongly understand. And Jody, I'm going to get to you, so you got to be ready here, because I'm going to make a jump at some point here. But I guess what I wanted to follow up with is, if I use the idea of an experiment again in scientific circles, not only does science collect the data, but then the scientist will often try to figure out what theory he or she feels best describes what the data from the experiment is showing, and as a way of understanding and in a sense collecting together the information in a way that a human can handle. Now, I'm not sure that's necessarily the way this particular kind of experiment actually processes, but just in case it does, what theory has come out of this experiment?
Yes. the humans so entertaining in this way.
I'm glad we can help.
The science, as you refer to it, is not the same. It was simply the question of, can duality exist? Can there be a location where souls may incarnate, where duality exists, where there is such high contrast? What would the humans do? Would they connect to their divine spark and let their spark lead the way? Or will they succumb to their environment, their human minds that are there simply to keep their physical vessels alive and moving through the experiment? And the answer is yes, all of the above.
I was waiting for that. Yes.
It is entertaining, really, when you sit back and watch the millennia in the human timeline and all of the interesting experiences that the souls have encountered. When the souls come home to this density and revise their plans for their next incarnation, everybody gathers round to listen, for the stories are quite extravagant and entertaining. You see, there is so much in this experience that the humans do not even realize is occurring. There is so much that goes into the experience of moving to the earth plane and having the human experience. It is the greatest playground that has ever been created. One of the finest, really.
I have some questions.
Go for it.
I've got so many questions running.
I know the feeling.
So my first question is, when we transition over, is the transition going to be similar in experience to when we leave this earth plane, or and then we're reincarnated on the new earth, or is it that kind of things just look different, or they appear different, or maybe it's a combination of both?
That is correct. It is a combination of both. There will be some who will depart the current earth plane and reincarnate into the new earth plane. And there will be some that will make the transition in its full experience without the memory of the previous experience. And there will be some that will bring forward the stories of the human experience past. When you look at cinematography in your world, the ideas oftentimes are not that of the human who wrote it, but of memories of other densities, other planes, other universes, galaxies, planets, experiences, you see. And these are the storytellers that came forth in the current earth plane. They may or may not be the same storytellers on the new earth plane, but there will always be the storytellers. There will always be the opportunity to hear of the experiences of this earth plane. Do you see?
Yes. I have another question.
Go for it.
Is the new earth plane another experience or experiment, or is the purpose to come back to oneness, or maybe that is the experiment?
It is not an experiment per se. It was divinely created for a landing place that is of peace and love, community, a place where the duality no longer exists. It may be inhabited by multiple species, not just humankind. There are other beings on other planets, in other galaxies, in other dimensions, that will all be able to coexist in this new Earth plane. The fantastic part about the new Earth plane is that free will is universal. In the current Earth plane, free will only exists to those who are incarnate and no one else. And in the new Earth plane, all beings, all species, everything has the law of free will governing it.
Wow.
I want to return to that, but I have to ask. I have to go to you, Jody, because I said it earlier. I was going to go to you, and it's time for me to go to you.
We don't have to.
Well, I'm going to go there anyway. Now, you've been listening, obviously, to the answers that you received, but also the answers that I received. When I was getting those answers from God, from what Heather Marie is channeling for us, were you getting similar stuff, or were you getting anything to embellish what we were receiving?
When I'm listening to Heather channel, because my guides like to go very, very in depth with a lot of things, I ask them to be quiet so that I can just listen.
Mhm.
So I didn't receive anything outside of this overwhelming feeling of, this isn't the right word, but like correct, like verification, like that feels correct inside of my system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the challenging part with dueling channels, because there's no duel actually going on at all. It's more like adding a speaker to the system than anything else.
Yes.
But it's all part of the same signal coming through.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, yeah. Wow. I could ask a bunch more questions here, and I said this was going to be a short session, so I think I'll just postpone them for another time, and I'll thank God for coming to join us, and I'll ask Heather Marie to separate and come back and join us here on the conversation so we can kind of make some more sense out of this really interesting experience we've been having here.
Yes.
So thank you, God, for
Thank
your
you.
contribution. We really appreciate it.
You are most welcome, dear ones. I send you love and appreciation and gratitude for this opportunity to communicate with you in this way. I send love to all humankind. You are at the jumping off point, and it is a beautiful thing, especially from where I sit. I love you. Until next time.
This is really something. I have a number of thoughts. Jody, I have a number of thoughts going through my head here. I have like a number of thoughts going through my head right now. The first one going through my head is that within 3D religious circles, there's always, not always, but for many, many generations, there's been the debate about God male, God female. And here we had a female voice delivering God's message. And I thought, wow, that's like really appropriate. It kind of puts to rest that particular controversy.
Yes.
Which was fun. Heather, looks like you're back. I'm curious to know, is your experience like David's? David always gets a little bit woozy and like he's not really quite sure what happened, and occasionally remembers pieces of the conversation, but he has to usually play back later on to find out what happened. What's your experience?
So when I first come back, I can't see very well. I don't know if I don't blink or what the deal is. But I always have I have a gallon of tears running down my face. I don't know if your videos capturing that, but the higher level the being, the more intense that experiences. I used to get really fried. I mean, I would be, because the pressure, it was just like this downward pressure. But I've been channeling so long now that we don't really have that experience anymore, thank goodness. And for me, I don't remember anything about the experience. So when I come back, I'm always like, so how was it?
How was it? Right.
Tell
Can you
me
tell me?
everything.
Give me the juicy
I'll,
gossip.
I'll definitely have to come back and watch the episode because I just love to, you know, hear what creator has to say.
The other
Yeah.
thing that David has often told us after he's done some channeling for us is he says that when he comes back, and this is my words, not his. I can't remember what his word is, but it's like he's vibrating. It's like he is, in my words, he's wired, and he's been wired. And on the one hand, it takes something out of him, and on the other hand, it invigorates him. Is that similar for you?
Absolutely. So when I first complete the channeling, I'm like awake and I'm like really alert and I'm like, okay, woo, like jazzed up. And then the crash will come a little bit later on. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a really good, like sugar caffeine high. And then you have a little bit of a crash. I've really worked a lot on assimilating the energy into my DNA so that I don't get taken out. I know plenty of channels that, they're down for the count for days sometimes. And I just do not subscribe to that. I'm like, I'm not gonna, not me.
Okay.
So I tend to feel that like really, up feeling. And then when, in about maybe an hour or so, I'll kind of be like, oh, I think I could take a nap. But literally it's just that fleeting thought. And then I'm pretty much back to normal.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that shows how much your practice has really paid off and turned into a practice that is it works in your life, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be down for the count every other day, probably. I mean, you wouldn't be good for much, right?
Yeah. When I used to channel source before, it would take me out for a solid 3 days afterwards.
Wow.
But I'm so versed in it. I practice so much in it, and I channel so many different beings now that it just doesn't really have that effect on me anymore. And it's a wonderful thing that it doesn't have that effect anymore.
Cool. So Jody, we already have some idea, but I'm going to ask you a little bit more anyway. Give us your impressions of, I can't believe we actually were talking to God. That's just really mind blowing. But what were your impressions of talking to God?
That is my exact words. Like, oh wow, okay, that's I'm just blown away, and it blows me away every single time because of the feeling that I get of how right, like how correct or how truthful the information is that is coming through, and just being in the room. But the last time that I saw Heather channel God, I was in the group. There was a large amount of people and you could ask any questions, but this felt more private and more personal, like God was looking right at me and saying some of those things. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening. Especially the opening.
Yeah, that was a great opening too from God. Yeah, no doubt. In fact, I'm thinking and remembering the time I went to the Abraham Hicks event. I'm remembering the many times that David's been on the show and channeled, and he channeled most days that he was on the show. And each of those feelings was identical to this feeling. Like I remember, to give you my own background, Heather, I basically rejected religion when I was in my early teens, despite the fact that my family was the leading family in our church. It was a very uncomfortable time. But for years, the idea that God even existed was a big question mark for me. And certainly the idea that God actually had an interest in connecting with me and appreciate me and so forth wasn't on the table for discussion. It just wasn't even part of it. So today, to be at a place where I've had these conversations with God or source or Abraham or whatever, the vortex, whatever you want to call this stuff, it's the one common factor, and I'm trying to find a way to summarize it. The one common factor is that in every case, I kind of go into it thinking, okay, I'm going to say something to kind of put a twist on, or look for a trip up, or look for a discontinuity, and then we get into the session and all that goes away. And I just like, okay, yeah, I believe. And it's like, wait a minute, what happened to me? Where did I go? It's a
Yeah.
very strange feeling. I mean, it's not strange in like, ooh, this is spooky. It's strange in that it's not something I'm normally used to as part of the human experience.
It happens all the time, Walt. It happens all the time. I will sit down with people and tell them, make sure you write down your questions
Mm.
and then like organize them in a way that you have 5 that you have to get to, and then the rest of them, if you get to them, great. If you don't, great. But have yourself 10 to 15 questions, and your top 3 are your absolutely have to, your next 2 are your this is also very important, and the rest of them are just a mishmash. And if make sure you write them down, because I can't tell you how many times they've gotten into the session and they're talking to God, and it's like, I didn't write down my questions, and they're just like, oh, I don't know what I want to say.
Right, that's exactly what I said. I don't know what I want to say. I had one question, and then as I was asking it, like 4 others popped in.
That's what
And
happens. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And I
the
was like, I
experience.
can't even form a thought, so I'm just gonna. I took a page out of Walt's book. Walt, I love that Walt is such a great host. I can't even talk now because he always thinks of a question, and I'm always like amazed that regardless of who we have on the show, he knows how to keep the conversation going. And he had mentioned to me one day that he's, just asking questions and reflecting back, and at some points just starts talking and whatever comes out of his mouth. So I took that page out of your book, Walt, and because I couldn't get the question straight in my mind, I just started talking and the question came out.
Well, in these sessions, actually, I don't have any trouble coming up with questions. I mean, I kind of indicated that at the end of this session that I had a whole bunch of them. And it's true. I had more questions that we could handle in 2 hours, let alone an hour. I mean, it was just like this endless stream of questions. And the questions, they come up in the context of what the message is coming through from God or Source or Abraham or whatever it is, because anytime that you're getting that, of course, in this case, we're getting kind of a Heather flavor of it. When it's David, we get a David flavor. When it's Esther Hicks, we get an Esther flavor. When it's Jodi, we get a Jodi flavor. We get the flavor of whoever is receiving the message. And that flavor always expresses things in terminology and from a knowledge viewpoint that the person doing the channeling understands, because that's how the message can come through clearest. But it also stimulates the questions. That's where the questions come from, because okay, I'm getting this Heather feeling right now, and this Heather sense, this Heather understanding. The Heather understanding is making me think of this next thing, and that's what I want to ask the question about. That's how the questions come to me in these sessions. It's not like doing a guest interview. A guest interview, it's like you often said, like you said, it's often of, okay, what's the last thing that the guest said? I just mirror that back to them, and that becomes the next question. But in this case, it's just the questions come so fast. I don't need any of my techniques. It's just, oh my God, which one can I ask now?
Yeah, before you came back, Heather, Walt had said he's got way more questions, but we're gonna have to do another episode.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
It was too much. I couldn't possibly squeeze them all in.
Yeah, it's really amazing how, the information as it comes through based on, the collective, it's based on today, it's based on the energy in the room, it's based on all of those things, because really, we're vibratory beings, like our souls vibrate, right? And so how this, lovely occurrence happens is, my vibration is dancing with yours and dancing with Jodi's, and yours is dancing together and it's dancing with mine. And, it creates this like really special bubble. And then when the being comes in, it plays in that energy too. And so I think that that's what makes the communication so like special and so targeted to the ones that are listening, is because the being picks up all that vibration, says, this is what they need to hear. This is the knowingness that they came to receive today.
It's always true. Almost every time, actually every time I think that someone has been on the show channeling, there's been a message. Jodi asked for it, in fact, one of the very first things, what message do you have for us? And it's, sure enough, there was a message. that almost every time I'm trying to think if there was a time where there was not a message like that, but it's almost like the the being or the collective beings, whatever, had pre-planned. We got to make sure that the listeners hear this, because we know they've been wanting to hear this. But the way you just explained it is, well, it's not that they pre-planned it. They just basically participated in the energy of the room, and that gave them what it is that they needed to give the message on. That's an interesting take. Yeah, really cool. God, we could go on for this for hours. We really could.
Yeah. I have a feeling they'll be coming back.
I think you will be. Can we have you back at some point?
Absolutely. I would love
it. I could be. Well, we also got to talk to you more. I mean, we got a chance to talk to you a bit about what you do and how you and Jodi met and so forth. But I get the feeling there's a lot more to your story that we need to hear. So we'll have to do both.
Yeah. I have a whole novel. We might need to have 3 or 4 episodes. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. We're at the hour mark. I'm going to go a little bit over here because I got to ask this question. I mean, this is a question I wanted to ask when we were talking with God. And now I want to ask you to get your take on it. Stories. One of the things that came out was that when this new earth gets created and people start either just moving over to it or getting born into it or whatever, that there is going to be a portion of the society that is able to tell stories that are basically, I'll call them 3D stories. So stories are important in that context. Stories are immensely important here in the 3D world. I think they truly do transcend space and time. They transcend all forms of existence. And so my question for both of you is, why are stories so important to us?
Okay, so I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I believe that the reason that the stories are so important is it's an escapism. It gives the person receiving the story a way to transport themselves into a different experience than the one that they're currently having. And I think that comes from the human psychology of the grass is greener on the other side. Maybe, but I feel like when people hear stories or they see movies or they read books, it allows them to move into that other experience as if they're experiencing it for themselves as the first time. And I think that this is something that is innately possible because of our soul and because of our connection to all that is. So because we're connected to all that is, the same person who wrote that story, whether it be channeled, whether it be made up in their crazy brain, however it is that they came about this story, it allows us to connect to that individual and every individual that created that experience for us in a way that makes it feel like, wow, I'm really there. I'm really in that moment. I'm really feeling and experiencing that exact thing. I think that it's less about the story and less about the writing or the, camera work or whatever. And it's more about us connecting on a spiritual level to what that experience really is and the creation, that divine creation of that experience.
Jodielynn, I suspect you're probably saying, yes, I agree totally. Yes. But is there anything you want to add to that?
So my guides keep talking about the experience and the desire to experience. That's the way that they're phrasing it, is this soul desire to experience all that ever was or ever is and ever will be. And stories help with that. They also seed possibilities. There's a part of our brain that says that, that's a story. It's not possible. But there's a portion of your heart, that heart space. Yeah, they're confirming that heart space that actually collects them as these pieces, as possibilities, and seeds it for future outcomes.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, me too.
That's one of the best descriptions of resonance I've ever heard, because that to me is what resonance is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I love that. Why do we have to stop?
I know.
Let's
Heather-
just stay and talk all day.
Yeah,
Right.
I was just so enthralled in the conversation with you that I just was like, shh, shh, shh. Oh my god!
Oh man! So we didn't even do the dueling channels.
We didn't do the duel. No, we didn't
No.
do the duel.
Well, I
but-
made the commentary. You really can't. It's not really a duel because it's basically the same message just coming through two vessels. So
Yeah.
it's kind of misleading to call it a duel. It really isn't a duel at all. It's more like a
Mhm.
group confirmation
Mhm.
than anything else.
Yep.
Well, I can tell you this, Heather. You have confirmed once more for me. This stuff's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing, and you're amazing too. Thank you for spending time with us on this first visit. This is a first visit. We are going to have you back. We'll have to figure out when that's
My
going to be,
pleasure.
but we'll definitely do that. And yeah, thank you for what you do, and what you do it really, really well.
Thank you. Thank you. It was truly my pleasure, and thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah,
And
before-
this is some. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go.
I was just gonna say before we hop off, I know Heather does one-on-one channeling sessions that will be on her website, and then she's
Ooh,
having
yeah.
that event. So if you're listening in the audience and you're like, "Wow, that's cool," just wait till you get into a room with her by yourself, and the experience is off the charts. Check it out. It is well worth it. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my entire lifetime.
And I imagine, Heather, they can all do that through mysoulgate.com, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we'll make sure we put that link into the show notes so they can find you that way. And this is something I've been doing now for quite some time, and I'm really glad because this is a really good opportunity to do it. But Heather, I wanted to tell you something that is important to me, and that is, you, like so many people who have been on this show, are doing things and saying things and writing things that so many people that you've never met and that you'll never see and that you'll never hope to meet and hope to see are hearing or reading or experiencing, and you're helping them in ways you don't even know about. And on their behalf, I want to thank you for what you do, because that's like one of the most important things that we can be appreciated for. The people that we're touching their lives in a way that we don't even know, but we need to know that it's all really very helpful and very worthwhile. So thank you.
Oh, it's so true. Well, and really, it's my pleasure, and it's a beautiful thing that we are doing here. Your
All
show's
right.
amazing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that as well. And I appreciate you, Jody, for bringing us Heather and for being you and for just continuing to be the light of Wednesdays. This is great. I'm loving it so much.
Thank you. I
It's
love
our
being here.
daily dose of happy.
It is. And we're feeling the happiness. The happiness is flowing today. Oh, man,
right.
oh, man. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.